A-level maths, integration by parts. So in this question, we'll ask you to find the exact value of this integral here. So firstly, how do I know that this is an integration by parts question? Of course, ignoring the fact that I've just written down the integration by parts formula here that you are given. Of course, you won't be given this in the question, but you are given it in the formula sheet. And the idea is that, essentially I have a product of two functions. That's the first giveaway because, integration by parts is essentially, reversing the product rule. Now, if you can't see that this is clearly a product of two functions, think of x, 1 over x cubed being x to the minus 3. Then, this integrand is really x to the minus 3 times the natural log of x. Now, sometimes, of course, just because you have a product of two functions doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a integration by parts question. Because sometimes you can have substitutions that are products of two functions. But in this situation, there's no clear substitution which is going to help me. And, you typically see these integration by parts questions being sort of the product of some sort of polynomial terms and an exponential or a logarithm or a trig function, etc. The next thing to quickly pay attention to is the fact that this is a definite integral, and the formula that you're given, which is exactly this here, for integration by parts is obviously just in terms of the indefinite integral, okay, so no limits here. So there's two ways you can approach integration by parts questions that are definite integrals, and that's either by, knowing that, if you're going to evaluate this formula at the limit points, you need to sort of basically evaluate this term, right, between the limit points, right, so, do the top limit minus the bottom limit, right, evaluate the product uv, and then calculate this definite integral here, again with the limits here and here, or you can calculate the indefinite integral, right? So go through this whole calculation, get an answer for your indefinite integral, and then just evaluate that value or the function that you get for your indefinite integral between these limit points, which is what I'm going to do here. So whenever we're attacking integration by parts questions, we need to decide which is going to be u and which is going to be dv by dx, right? Looking at this left-hand side here. And the best way to do this is to remember the acronym LATE, okay? So LATE. Some people talk about LEATE, right? But we don't have any inverse trig functions in A-level maths, so we're just going to stick to LATE. And this stands for, I'm not going to write it out, right, just to save time, but this is logarithmic, algebraic. So algebraic really just means terms, polynomials and x essentially, trigonometric and exponential. So this is sort of the hierarchy, right? The priority of what, you make your u substitution. So logarithms take, first priority, etc., etc. In this case, we have the natural log of x. So that's going to be our, function that we make our u, and our dv by dx is going to be our x to the minus 3 or our 1 over x cubed. So let's go ahead and do this. So if u is equal to the natural log of x and dv by dx is equal to 1 over x cubed or x to the minus 3, what you need to do is first off find du by dx because we need that on the right hand side, and we also need our v, so we integrate this equation here. So differentiating this, we get, well, du by dx is just equal to 1 over x, right? That's the derivative of the natural log of x. And integrating this equation here, we get that v is equal to 1 or minus 1 over 2x squared, or you could write this as, minus